danger there is. A shoal of Carangides looms. It seems, though, they aren't too bothered about the damsels and move away. Their body shape is typical of a fish designed to move quickly and neatly. They are outstanding hunters of shoals of open water fish, like sardines or anchovies. Bubbles rising from the seabed catch our eye. This is hydrothermal activity. Negro Island, particularly the south, has important subterranean hotspots which heat up deep aquifers. Geothermal energy is, in fact, one of the main energy sources for the Philippines. A young male Carey turtle moves ever so slowly across the floor, undisturbed by our presence. Suddenly, there's an attack by a male damselfish. The turtle got too close to the eggs, and the fish protects them with all its might. While the damsel tries to get rid of the Carey, other fish have spotted the eggs and move in to eat them up. The damsel can do nothing against overwhelming odds. These big Galaxea corals help to form a series of patch reef formations. This species seems well adapted to slightly muddy water in protected areas. The colony individuals are open during the day. Strangely enough, only one anemone has stopped the growth of the coral, which can't compete with its stinging capacity. The coral will grow, but surrounding the anemone. We dive deeper and find the platform bed spattered with sponges. The different sponge groups have protein fibers and calcium carbonate crystals or silicate in their bodies, giving them consistency and protection. This sand perch makes an appearance, exploring its beat. The lizardfish is also typical of these sandy bottoms. Its alarming protruding teeth emerging from the prominent mouth are an unmistakable trademark of this group of fish. The current is weak here, and the filtering species dominate. Sea feathers and crinoids are common. The crinoids belong to the oldest group of echinoderms and display the most primitive features. Unlike the rest of the species, such as the starfish, urchins, holothurias and ophiura, the mouth is exposed upward to the water. The arms are responsible for feeding and movement and are covered by small extensions called pinnullae. Over them, Tiny microscopic tentacles with small suction pads are in charge of capturing and transporting food to the grooves which direct the food. The particles move slowly up to the mouth and are swallowed. We have seen that, thanks to the marine reserve, fish and coral diversity is much higher than in surrounding areas. The numbers are greater too. These are surgeonfish. The name comes from the 1 or 2 knife-shaped spines they have at the base of the tail. They're looking for algae, their favorite food. We surprise some sweetlips in this crevice. It feeds on crustaceans and hard skeleton mollusks using its tough jaws. Its meat is popular in Asian markets, and the fish is getting scarcer in places with overfishing. This nudibranchiae moves hurriedly through a hole. It feeds on Ascidiae non-stop and is unaffected by their poisons thanks to a special metabolism. In the same place, more protected from the light, some Tubostrea falconeri colonies live. Scientists have found out this species produce toxins damaging to the larvae of competing coral. This way, they have more space to live and grow. Not far from Dumaguete in Sibulan is the Twin Lake National Park of Ballinsasayo and Danao. These 2 lakes make up some of the best conserved spaces on Negro Island and are visited not only by European tourists, but by the locals of Dumaguete. They are 2 deep freshwater volcanic craters, surrounded by a mountain chain densely covered in thick vegetation. Around here, some of the grandest trees in the Philippines are to be found. The Almagica tree, which can be more than 60 meters tall. The bamboo thrives here too, along with ferns and orchids of all shapes and colors. But it is the sheer abundance of water that is the surprise here in the natural park. Brooks and streams everywhere, fruit of the constant rainfall. On the banks of the watercourses, wonderful fern trees soaring into the sky, defying the rest of the selva. These fern trees are real living fossils and show brilliantly the fine state of conservation here. Tracking back along one of the brooks, we get to the Casororo waterfalls, found near the village of Valencia. Although it's one of many waterfalls on the island, the sheer volume of water falling and the height of the drop, more than 100 meters, makes it one of the most visited of the park. Back in Dumaguete, we pause a while to go through one of the endless humid zones along the Negro Island coastline. These intertidal areas are used by a myriad of seabirds, like these storks, for searching in the mud on the lookout for small invertebrates on which they feed. This is a mangrove near the town of Tanjay. These mangroves not only protect the coast from wave and wind erosion, but are responsible for the huge productivity of the island's waters. They are the ideal habitat for hundreds of species of young fish, mollusks and crustaceans to develop, and so play a key role in enriching the fishing grounds around the coast. We are now going to have a look at the sandy and muddy seabeds, doing what divers call muck diving. Some barracuda move edgily over the sandy floor. They are fast because they are on the hunt. Strewn around the sand, we come across rocks and small structures that at first sight don't look very interesting, but they conceal some odd and unknown animals of these seas. As we close in on some coral formations, we notice something moving in the sand. This amazing fish is a Dactylopus, or little dragon. It sucks up crustaceans from the sand. Its pectoral fins are modified and show 3 spines it uses to move. The dorsal fins are specially colored, so when they open up, are able to confuse possible predators. We reach an area of barrel sponges and bump into a fine lionfish belonging to the scorpionfish family. One difference lies in that they don't use camouflage. Instead, they are very eye-catching. At least 20 species of lionfish exist, and among other features, they stand out for their length, the number of spines on the fins, and their ornamentation. They belong to the Indo-Pacific area and the Red Sea, and have been introduced into the Caribbean, where they are now a plague. Although the lionfish is a voracious carnivore and a great predator of young fish and other species, it's not unusual to observe them in the company of other lionfish, of different species even. Not far away and in the arms of a crinoid, we find this ghost pipefish. These fish are of a group of several alike families. They exist near the substrata, always near to corals or crinoids. The females look after their eggs, and the fins are usually well developed. Another group of pipefish have a flag-shaped caudal fin. They live freely and spend their time cleaning other fish. These are males and are in charge of looking after the eggs. And these pretend to be leaves or remains of detritus dragged along by the current. Despite the great variety of species, all of them have an extended mouth on the same axis as their body, and the jaws are fused all the way along. Near a sponge tied down with its prehensile tail, we find this wonder of nature. They are related to the pipefish, but this is a horned seahorse. This species is a Hippocampus hystrix and has a long nose and spines on its body. The white striping on the nose is also typical of the species. We carry on until we are attracted by something looking like the remains of a sponge moving suspiciously. We move closer and closer. It's a wasp fish. Like the leaf fish, it sways along trying to simulate bits of leftovers and is rocked by the current. Its hunting strategy: waiting until the prey gets too close. And you have to be careful of it. It has a poisonous dorsal spine, causing much pain if stung. This anemone only shows its tentacles. The rest of the body is hidden several centimeters into the sand. Among its arms, some shrimps have sought refuge. So as not to be eaten, they cover themselves with the anemone's mucus. This way, the anemone doesn't see them as enemies or as food. The artificial reefs are also used by the Dumaguete people to protect the reef itself and its tenants. And these young batfish have already learned the lesson. Even the body of an old car is a great place to set up home for many species. In this case, cardinals and snappers. an authentic oasis in the middle of the sand. Even the corals can colonize the artificial reef surface. Bubble coral colonies are abundant here. This coral has adapted to protected waters, and if they are muddy, all the better. Among its blisters, we discover a number of crustacean residents. Like with the anemone, they carry out cleaning jobs both to the coral and fish passing by. This shrimp, in fact, is known to the scientific fraternity as Avere philippinensis and is only found on this specific coral. This small goby is also adapted to living among the bubble coral tentacles. And inside the tubes scattered around the bed, a moray rests, awaiting nightfall. Any nuke or cranny is valid. These shrimps wait to feed on the leftovers and parasites of fish. They clean and recycle the rubbish collecting on the bed, an important function. To swim, they beat their abdominal extremities energetically. This helps to increase oxygenation through the resultant water flow. They wait patiently for signs of food. Some meters away, this small anemone, completely taken over by clownfish. The number of clownfish it can host is in proportion to the available surface it has. And if the clownfish weren't enough, some porcelain crabs have joined in. These harmless crabs spend their time filtering the water for particles with their modified appendages. But for spectacular anemone, this Cerianthus, one of the species living with its long body buried in the sediment. Although about half a meter is visible, they can completely disappear inside the seabed if threatened. Living here too are the orange-thorned Periclemene shrimps. Here they find shelter under the stinging tentacles of the Cerianthus. These waters, so badly treated over the centuries, have gained back their vitality thanks to decided action from both scientists and fishermen. An example of collaboration that should be applied in many other parts of the world if we want to ensure the future of our seas and oceans.